I'm feeling nostalgic today, so let's talk about my Harley-Davidson road trip that I took last year and a topic that Joe Rogan talked about with Oliver Anthony and had nothing to do about his guest. Hello, everyone, and thank you for downloading episode 11 of the MontesMayhem podcast. You have a lot of choices for podcasts out there, and you downloaded this one for some reason, and I'm greatly appreciative as I move the microphone around in a very unprofessional manner. So I have like two topics. Usually I do three, or I kind of been doing three. So I feel like they're going to be a little bit long drawn. So I'm only going to stick to the two. But today I'm feeling a little nostalgic on this Labor Day weekend. As I mentioned before, thinking back about my trip that I took to the motorcycle Holy Land, sort of, for Harley-Davidson. Last year, my buddy and I, we did a road trip. We drove out to Milwaukee. I'm not going to go into the whole trip. The only thing I'm going to joke around or mention besides the actual main reason, or one of the main reasons we went out there, is driving out there from Jersey, accidentally didn't take into consideration the time change. So, we were an hour early for Airbnb because we didn't take in consideration, they're not on East Coast time, which no big deal. But in the moment, it was funny because we were so proud. We got there 2 minutes before we were allowed to check in, but it was an hour and 2 minutes. Nonetheless, so what I want to do is talk about the Harley-Davidson Museum, and even if you don't like motorcycles, why you would be interested in going there. And honestly, even if you like motorcycles but don't like Harleys, I honestly think it may be worth going there. So first of all, the main museum campus that I'm going to hit on here today is just absolutely beautiful. That I don't know if that's considered downtown Milwaukee or what they describe it as. I just think it's absolutely beautiful. My goodness, is it absolutely beautiful. And I cannot recommend it enough to people. The exteriors is just, they have these medallions all around people that you're able to buy, and you can kind of have like your engraving with like a family member as a memory, as a gift, which is kind of cool. They have a cat. I think it was called like the Motor Lounge Cafe or something. I don't really remember it, but we got there. We had a few drinks for lunch, and some food, which was pretty good. And they had some engines that were kind of decorating the place, and they had the whole like motorcycle Harley theme. Just lots of fun to kind of do a little pre-gaming perhaps before you go inside to check out the place. But once you go in, and there's a lot, like wear some comfy shoes if you just happen to be casually going, because there is a lot to check out. So first off, if you're into American history, if you're a history buff, I think you'll definitely enjoy the trip, because for the first, let's say, 50-some years of the motor company's existence, which is highlighted in the museum, there's just heavy emphasis of what's going on in the culture itself. I'm talking about, not the culture so much as just the American way, in terms of the Depression, in terms of world wars, in terms of how they had to react to certain events that were going on, and how they worked around them. I found that fascinating. Like, just forget the motorcycles for 1 second. I kind of liked the historic value of what they were showcasing was kind of enthralling, to be totally honest with you. And it made me want to kind of do a little U.S. history lesson, or I kind of indiscreetly took a U.S. history lesson without really realizing it, which is pretty cool. Perfect example is how during World War II, I believe it was, how there was rations for sheet metal because it had to go to the army and everything. So when they sold oil, it was sold in glass containers, and they had a glass container, and I never saw one before. So that was really cool. I didn't even know they did that. And I'm using that as one example. There are plenty of examples of showing how they had to do things like that. Now, from an engineering standpoint, I'm not an engineer by what so means, but seeing the evolution of the designs was quite impressive. I mean, wow, was it impressive. You saw your 1903 Harley, and you just saw how like they did a little bit more. They did a little bit more. To a degree, it almost felt like a flip book, where instead of an animation taking place, you almost see the bike just kind of evolve little by little and then jumps to something a lot bigger. And then you would see how people in the mailing industry, delivery agencies, police, how they were able to use these bikes for themselves. It was extremely impressive. And it was a long tour, to be totally honest with you. Like, by the time we were done. Like, it was a pretty long tour. But it also talked about how there was how the impact of motorcycles in media, specifically movies, talking about Elvis, talking about music, talking about like really funny stuff. I don't know, funny is like, wow, but like there was like a bike that was submerged into the ocean. I forgot how long after, I believe a boat sunk. So you saw kind of what seawater did to a bike that was just submerged for quite a period of time. It talked about the different styles of the engines with the different sounds they would make and how the V-shaped engine, why it kind of creates the sound it makes. So for adults and kids, I think there's a lot of a cool factor there. And there is a lot of eye candy, to say the least, to kind of just make you say, wow, that's pretty cool. And then, again, as you go through, I don't remember, well, there was definitely a gift shop. It wasn't attached necessarily to, like, as if you're leaving, like, a ride from an amusement park. You have to walk out of your way to the gift shop. But there were so many unique things that were just for people exiting the premises. And it was a really cool shop. Left with way too many things. And it was a historical experience, or a history lesson experience. It was cool from the motorcycle / Harley fanboy that I am. And just really captivating. We tried to then go over to the main headquarters on, I'm going to mispronounce the name, Joanna Avenue, I believe. I always missay it. And we couldn't really check it out over there, but, it was just pretty sweet, just checking out everything. The hard part is not, you have to remind yourself you can't jump onto the bikes. I'm pretty sure they would just club you over the head if you did that. But if you get a chance, check out the Harley-Davidson Museum. When we went, we were able to kind of schedule around the Milwaukee Brewers, the Miller Company tour. We saw a small band out there, Psycho Stick, awesome. And it was just a lot of fun. So if you do get a chance, try to make it a priority, because it's just fun, because motorcycles are fun. You know what else is fun? Horror movies. Horror movies are fun. And one aspect of horror movies, or movies in general, I guess I should say, I love practical effects. I adore them. I think that digital CGI, whatever you want to call it, does have its place. Perfect example is I remember seeing John Wick, and like they were adding in digitally the smoke and the sparks and everything coming out of the guns because of safety reasons. That's totally cool. I love the fact that they can actually do that and actually protect people so there's no accidents. God forbid someone gets killed or anything like that. Because accidents can happen. And I love it. It's cool. I think there is definitely a place for them, but sometimes they're overkill. And especially at the beginning of the 2000s, I feel like it was really pushed in front of you, and it did not age very well. But if you look at stuff from the 80s, I always kind of think about like John Carpenter stuff. Maybe Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. A lot of those kills would have been CGI in today's world, but they would look so good practical. And I heard a snippet from the Joe Rogan podcast when he was talking with Oliver Anthony. I'm not talking about him whatsoever, but they had a conversation about practical effects in movies. And I just found that very interesting. And he was specifically talking about the American Werewolf in London, which had one of the greatest, maybe, I don't know, practical effects moments in history, and what the creator did behind it. So take a listen.
And in that one, that was the first time in one of those movies where you got to see the advancements of special effects. Like, what year was American Werewolf in London? Let's guess that. I want to say 82. I'm going to say 82, 84. 81. I should have stuck with 82. back then when you had special effects, it was like kind of like they didn't move that good. Like they couldn't get their faces to move that good. But he had figured out a way to get your hands to grow. Like and he had to figure out a way to get things in his cheeks where his cheeks were bubbling.
Yeah.
And it's
awesome.
All real. None of it is CGI. And there's something about that uncanny valley when you're watching a CGI transformation. Your brain knows it's bullshit. For whatever reason, you're better off having it look fake but be a real thing, like John Carpenter's The Thing. You're better off with that than you are with CGI. For whatever reason. CGI just...
I mean, I think we just have seen...
There it is. There it is.
Yeah, this is behind the scenes footage that I was going to show you.
Oh, wow.
I thought it was pretty cool
That's
because
cool.
it still moves in a really interesting way.
Yeah, but that's a physical thing moving. It's not a CGI. That does look exactly like the wolf in the lobby, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. So, but back then they couldn't even get the thing to close its mouth. Look how sick that is.
That's awesome.
Imagine if you're in a subway and you see that fucking thing turning a corner. Oh my God. That scene was amazing. Where the poor guy was stuck in the subway and he was running from it, and then you see it at the bottom of the escalator stairs. That's like just those quick glimpses of a thing like that is so much more terrifying than some long CGI'd up monster killing someone scene. Like The American Werewolf in London was just a masterpiece. Landis just nailed it. It was the perfect horror movie, and it was funny. It's like there's funny moments in it.
Yeah, that's cool when you can add you can get humor in there too. Yeah, that kind of reminds me of my dog when I don't give him table scraps. He's got that terrible face like that.
That thing was amazing. Yeah, but it's just the difference between digital and real.
I mean, the dude hit it right on the point, man. That's exactly the reason why I like the special effects so much. There's that grittiness about it. Like when something's like absolutely perfect, it just doesn't flow or feel proper sometimes. And if you compare, especially going back to what I said, you check American Werewolf in London and maybe look at something that's a horror movie that was heavy into special effects in the early 2000s, 25 years ago, it just doesn't feel right. So it feels good that it feels like there's been quite the push going back to special effects, or at least mixing it in. I shouldn't say going back, because they're never just going to go back. And it just makes it so much more enjoyable. Going back to what I talked about with Terrifier 2, I think one of the reasons this sequel was so great was the fact that they were very big into Damien, the creator. I'm forgetting his last name. The fact that he was able to do the special effects and do the makeup himself and just kind of really gore things up by hand, I think is what kind of gave him that creative edge in the movie that helped it thrive so much. Am I wrong? Do you not like motorcycles? Do you not like the special effects stuff? Am I overstating, understating? Let me know. Hit me up on the social medias. You can do so at MontesMayhem. I'm really all across the board on that. That's MontesMayhem. You want to support the show the best way? Check out my eBay store at MontesMayhem. Selling, I don't know if I'm selling some Harley-Davidson manuals, which I know is very specific. I can't think of any horror stuff off the top of my head, but that's very helpful. But until then, guys, wrapping this up, only 2 topics, keeping it short. Hopefully everyone has a great holiday weekend. Be safe. Don't be a jerk. Talk to you later. Bye.